than the end of an elite force. They had been Hitler's elite soldiers, disciplined, heavily armed, and feared across Europe. From the frozen plains of the Eastern Front to the beaches of Normandy, the Waffen-SS had earned a reputation for relentless combat and ideological fanaticism. But in May 1945, as Nazi Germany collapsed, their war did not truly end. Instead, it entered a new and uncertain phase. Across a devastated continent, hundreds of thousands of Waffen-SS soldiers surrendered to Allied forces. Once celebrated as the cutting edge of the Third Reich, they now stood disarmed, hungry, and uncertain of their fate. Many still wore the same uniforms that had made them symbols of terror only weeks earlier. Declared criminal, the Allies moved quickly. One of their first decisions was the complete dissolution of the SS and all its branches, including the Waffen-SS. American, British, French, and Soviet troops rounded up former SS members wherever they could be found. Entire divisions, from elite armored units to foreign volunteer formations, were placed into captivity. The legal reckoning followed soon after. At the Nuremberg trials, prosecutors argued that the SS had been a central pillar of Nazi crimes, responsible not only for battlefield atrocities, but also for mass murder, deportations, and genocide. In September 1946, the International Military Tribunal officially declared the SS a criminal organization. This ruling carried enormous consequences. Membership alone could now be considered evidence of guilt. However, exceptions were introduced for men who had been conscripted late in the war or could demonstrate minimal ideological involvement. As a result, justice would be uneven, strict for some, lenient for many. Camps, trials, and release. In the months after surrender, conditions in Allied POW camps were grim. Overcrowded enclosures, food shortages, and disease were common. Millions of German soldiers were detained, and Allied authorities simply lacked the resources to prosecute everyone. Priority was given to high-ranking officers and those linked to specific war crimes. A small number of Waffen-SS commanders were tried and imprisoned, including figures involved in atrocities in France, Belgium, Italy, and Eastern Europe. But the vast majority, especially lower-ranking soldiers, were released within a year or two. Their records were marked, but their lives continued. Escape routes and new lives. Not everyone waited for release. Some former Waffen-SS officers chose to flee Europe entirely. Using forged documents and underground networks later known as rat lines, they escaped to countries like Argentina, Spain, Syria, and Egypt. These routes were often facilitated by sympathetic contacts, former comrades, or corrupt officials. In South America, several ex-SS men lived quietly under new identities, rarely speaking about their past. Their stories later fueled myths of secret Nazi networks, some real, some exaggerated, that continue to fascinate historians today. Life in a new Germany. For those who remained, post-war Germany offered little comfort. The Waffen-SS name was deeply stigmatized. Veterans were barred from public service, denied pensions, and excluded from official remembrance ceremonies. Yet, as the Cold War intensified, political realities began to change. West Germany needed stability, economic recovery, and social integration. Millions of former soldiers had to be absorbed into civilian life, including former SS members. By the early 1950s, debates over veteran benefits dominated politics. Chancellor Konrad Adenauer eventually supported limited reintegration, arguing that excluding all Waffen-SS veterans would deepen resentment and instability. Gradually, Some were allowed to receive pensions, particularly those who had been conscripted rather than volunteered. The battle over history. Out of this resentment emerged organized resistance. In 1951, former Waffen-SS generals founded HIAG, an association originally designed to support veterans financially. But it soon became something else, a political and historical lobby determined to rehabilitate the image of the Waffen-SS. HIAG promoted the idea that the Waffen-SS had been soldiers like any other, detached from Nazi crimes. Through books, magazines, reunions, and political pressure, the group worked tirelessly to reshape public memory. For a time, they succeeded. By the 1960s, their narrative had gained surprising acceptance in parts of West German society, but this changed dramatically as a younger generation began confronting Germany's Nazi past more openly. Journalists and historians exposed HIAG's revisionism, documenting the Waffen-SS's deep involvement in war crimes. As public tolerance faded, political support collapsed, and by 1992, HIAG dissolved. Memory, myths, and warnings. Today, the Waffen-SS no longer exists, but its legacy remains deeply contested. Modern scholarship leaves little doubt. The Waffen-SS was not a normal army. It was an ideological force, inseparable from Nazi crimes. Yet, debates over memory, responsibility, and justice continue, not only in Germany, but across Europe. 80 years later, the story of the Waffen-SS serves as a warning how easily history can be rewritten, and how long its shadows can endure.